This meeting is being recorded by the organizer.
Hey everyone, and welcome to this edition of Just Parlays. I'm Jim Williams along with my partner Chris King. It's Monday. Welcome. And we have a special guest. Now, we have been promoting this special guest because she is indeed special. Okay? It's not often we have special guests on Monday, but she's special and she can come on Monday. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, I give you the one, the only, Allie Burns. Allie, welcome to the show, my friend.
Hi, guys. How's it going? Thank you so much for having me.
Glad to have you, Allie.
It's a pleasure, Allie. In the pre-show, Chris and I were talking a couple things. One, happy President's Day to everybody.
Yes.
Three, as a sports historian, a couple of quick items. 1961, President John Kennedy wrote into law the Peace Act. Now, that made me. Why is that? The reason that is important is it gave the NFL, the NBA, the NHL, and of course at that time the AFL, the ability to bargain together to create a television rights. Okay, so prior to that time, everybody was on their own. So kudos to President Kennedy. In '65, Lyndon Johnson approved the AFL-NFL merger, and then in 1984, Ronald Reagan signed into effect the 1984 Cable Act, which allowed cable companies to bundle, which we all hate now, but at the time made sense because it gave ESPN the right to print money, which they are doing even still. So, and TNT and pretty much everybody else. So there's a couple of little tidbits for you. Now, Allie, my friend, Chris and I were going through the list that Chris brought out of The Athletic came out with the list of the top 75 NBA players of all time. And we thought, before we get into anything heavy, it might be fun to play with this list. And we were going over it, and I got to say, I'm stunned. But let's throw it. Go, Chris, give Allie a few of the names here and see what you think, Al.
Okay, this is the top 10 according to The Athletic for the greatest players in the history of the National Basketball Association. Kobe Bryant's number 10. Now, I'm not a big Kobe fan, but I think he's probably better than that.
Yeah, I'm not a Kobe fan either, but 10 is a little low on that list.
Here's the guys in front of him. Tim Duncan is number 9. I can live with that. Shaq is number 8. I don't know how you get that high up the list when all you do is dunk and miss free throws, but if that's the case, where's Chris Dudley?
Good call.
Number 7 is Larry Legend. I'm not going to argue with Larry Bird. I mean, he was a three-point shooter when nobody was shooting threes.
Yeah.
6 is Wilt Chamberlain. 5 is Magic Johnson. 4 is Bill Russell. 3 is Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. 2 is LeBron James. And number 1 is Michael Jordan. Now, Jim and I are saying, LeBron's still playing now. Now, I get he's been around for a long time. He's done some great things. I don't think he's number 2 in the history of the league. Now, what's your take on that?
Yeah, I'm always going to put Jordan as my number 1. I'm one of those people who Jordan was the greatest ever, and that's just how I roll. Not a big Kobe fan, not a big Laker fan. Not a big LeBron fan. 2 reasons is because I don't really like the Lakers, and also I don't really like players that didn't go to college, because then I feel like you're in the NBA, and I'm like, I don't know you. I didn't just watch you. Who are you coming in here? Like the last guy who I'm okay with not going to college was like Moses Malone. That was kind of my cutoff point, and everybody else, I'm over it. LeBron, I mean, even now, it's like he doesn't even. It was kind of beautiful of him to hit that game-winning shot last night in the All-Star game. It was Team LeBron, so we'll give him that. And Curry was insane. But like I would put a Steph Curry in there before. I mean, Steph Curry changed the freaking game of basketball, and so did Shaquille O'Neal for that matter. They actually had to rewrite the rules of basketball for this guy to play. So that's a little bit more monumental for me. Tim Duncan, I'm okay with being a 9. He was kind of a vanilla player. It wasn't the most exciting Spurs team ever, but they were solid. They did their job. So I'm okay with that. I'm not with it with the LeBron. I'll put him in the top 10.
Well, I mean, the argument was that people put up was they have John Stockton at number 25. Now, I'm a Utah fan. I've been a Utah fan since Mark Eaton was patrolling the middle and the team moved from New Orleans. People are arguing John Stockton shouldn't even be on the list because A, he doesn't have an MVP award, and B, he didn't win a title. Now, by that logic, where you didn't win a title, my argument was if you're going to do that, then Bill Russell should be number 1 because he's got 11 titles.
Right. 2
Nobody
which
wants to say anything about that.
Played at the same time.
Right. But
so,
I mean,
there's that.
Let's face it. Stockton, he owns the career record for assists. Who knows if it'll ever be broken? It's a career record for steals. So what if he didn't win a title? I mean, he ran into Jordan twice, and everybody knows that the Western Conference was not the easiest path to get through anyway in the 90s to get there in the first place. But we were talking about some of the duds on the list. We're trying to figure out why Dwight Howard is on the list.
Yeah, Dwight Howard should not be on that list. What number is he?
He is number 56. We said he's 2 spots behind Bob McAdoo, and he's right in front of Earl the Pearl Monroe.
I love Earl the Pearl. I don't like that.
We're trying to figure out why Dennis Rodman was number 62. He's ahead of Pete Maravich.
Well, Rodman should be up there. Maravich is another one of those trendsetters with that ball. I mean, my kid is super into basketball. He's 11, and he's just really got into ball handling. And the first thing I did was shoot him over 3 YouTube videos of Pistol Pete Maravich. You want to learn how to handle the ball? This is who you watch, my friend. So, I mean, that's another trendsetter or a game changer, and that's kind of what I look for when we're talking about the best ever. What did you do that no one else did before?
Now, should Maravich be on this list?
Yeah. Maravich, one of the things that he did, Allie, to your point, nobody passed like Maravich did when he came into the league. You did not know where the ball was going to come from. His teammates on the same end of that for the first couple years that he was in the league, they didn't know where the ball was coming from. But Maravich changed the game immensely. I mean, I can remember as a kid sitting at home waiting to watch him play at LSU and then waiting to watch him play in reality in the bigs when he made it to the NBA. But look, as I was talking to Chris, I produced and directed NBA basketball from 79 through, the early 2000s. I'm not throwing shade on LeBron James. He's a fantastic basketball player. He's never been a team basketball player. And that's something that he's also an assassin. He's a paid player. He's a mercenary. So he doesn't get what he wants in Cleveland. What's he do? He ups and goes down to Miami, and they create an instant team. All right. Then he just, comes back to Cleveland, wins him a championship. Yay. Okay, throw the confetti. Then he goes out to Los Angeles. Fine. He isn't even one of the top 5 Lakers of all time.
I would agree with that.
So, because you have to be on a team. Look at how much accomplishment was done, as we said, with the Celtics during the Bird Parrish, DJ era, that era. Mm-hmm. Magic, even though I know you're a Lakers hater, fair enough. Magic and what happened with the Lakers, right? It's all Timmy Duncan. You're talking about Tim Duncan. Look at what they did and accomplished because the Spurs were a team. They were able to beat Miami 2 out of the 4 times they played each other because they were a team. So I don't know. I'm not hating on LeBron. It's just that, he has not. There's so many other players. How can you put LeBron ahead of Magic Johnson?
Well, and I feel like that's part of the not going to college thing for me is that you've just spent your whole life up to 18 years old being this gem, being the greatest, of your age group there ever was. And so you don't get to go to college and experience a coach who's building a team. Now you have to work together. Now you have goals. Now you take losses, in high school when you're LeBron James. How many times did you lose a game in high school if you're LeBron James or Kobe Bryant? Those losses are important. It makes you become a good loser. It makes you realize that you need the other guys on your team to win basketball games. So I think that team aspect of it carries over into the NBA, and that's why we don't see it as much. I think college is incredibly important for NBA players.
I think you're right. And I think that if you look, we were talking a lot about, how do you get teams to play? Look at what Eric Spoelstra has done in Miami, right? They've had a mash unit pretty much the rest of the beginning of the season, and they're still competitive and continue to play. Pop doesn't have the kind of team that he would like, but during the time that Pop was coaching at San Antonio, he built the team. Look at the Magic teams, which were Pat Riley's teams. What was going on up in Boston. So I prefer to watch a team game. It's a team sport, I would have thought. Now it's freelance. It's there's a lot less of that type of team. Maybe I'm just old get off my lawn person. I don't know, but I'm just
Jim Walkie Williams.
You have to get away from me.
But when you watch like some of the younger teams play, when you watch the Bucks play, the Bucks are a well-oiled machine. That ball is moving. It's here. It's there. They know where each other are on the court. They want to help each other out. There's a lot less selfishness than you see in some of these older teams.
Right.
And then bringing Westbrook to the Lakers, I was like, oh, wow. Okay, so we're going to get players fist fighting for the ball now. This seems like a reasonable idea. Yeah.
Right. This is genius.
So, it's one of those things like, okay, so did we want to play basketball or do we want to sell Sprite, or something like, so what are we here for?
And speaking of team basketball, Allie, segueing into what I know you're strong about, we've got the final week of the regular season for the Missouri Valley Conference this week. We've got a 5-team log jam up there with teams battling at the top of that conference with Northern Iowa, of course, the Ramblers who have continued right on without Porter Mosier. Missouri State, Drake, and Bradley. It's going to set up for an interesting week there.
Don't forget Northern Iowa.
Right, they're at top of the conference right now. I think the game with Loyola Chicago Saturday is going to be what's going to decide who's going to get the top seed in the conference. We already saw, Loyola Chicago beat up on Northern Iowa earlier this season, but then they stumbled against Drake Saturday. Do you think they can turn it around?
I think they have to. I don't think they really have a choice. Now, actually today, so I did my stats. I did my numbers for the 3 games that are going on today. And honestly, my numbers were kind of right on it. So I put them into a three-team teaser is the way that I navigated this. Because usually my numbers are fairly spot on. Loyola Chicago, it's like heavy is the head that wears the crown, right? And we've got Drake, Missouri State, I believe Northern Iowa, and Illinois State returned all their starters, whereas we know we lost Cameron Crudwig from Loyola Chicago, who was their big dude last year. He went and opted for the NBA. So heavy is the head that wears the crown. I've watched this conference, the top 4 in the conference, just go back and forth through the last weeks of the season. And it's so exciting and so competitive. And, people get all wrapped up in the Big Ten and the ACC. And I love watching that basketball. I don't like betting on that basketball. The lines are so much sharper in those conferences. And I don't like having my money on them, maybe in play, but I love betting on Missouri Valley. I love the Horizon, the Summit, the Mountain West. Those are like my stronger points in the conferences.
Well, everybody here loves to bet on IUPUI losing or keeping the game under the total.
Or team total under for IUPUI is a good one, too. It's one of my biggest questions on my Morningwood show is what does IUPUI stand for?
And why?
Indiana University, Purdue University at Indiana. I don't know.
Which is weird. Pick Indiana University, pick Purdue University, but that's like meshing Florida State, University of Florida in South Florida via West Florida. It's like all the directionals. And UCF, I left them out. But, you're talking about Northern Iowa. Northern Iowa plays in a very interesting gym. And the gym is actually the same place they play football. And they move everything in and make it tight. So it's like 8,000 to 9,000 in there. Everybody goes. There literally is nothing else to do up in there. we got lost going to there, doing a game there one time, and I ended up finding out how close Minnesota and Iowa were actually together because we ended up in Rochester, Minnesota, which is where the Mayo Clinic is. So we found it.
Oakland is.
Yeah, it is. Where Oakland, of course. Oakland would, of course, be in Minnesota. The brand of basketball that's played in that conference, though, is always fun to watch. And like Chris said, we're like you, Allie. We stay away from the ACC, the SEC, all that other stuff. That's fine. Everybody and the grandmothers does that.
Unless we're fading Nebraska.
Yeah, well, that's true.
Maryland for me this year. Maryland owes me money. Can I tell you that Maryland owes me money? So does Memphis. Y'all write me a check, okay?
I know, and Allie, for your benefit, I know a lot of Maryland graduates. I will get in touch with them after the show and tell them to send their checks to your PayPal account. So there's that. But
well,
yeah,
if you're gonna do that, send me money too, just cause.
Right?
Okay, Chris. I'll put it down on the list.
Hey, I've had to talk about Maryland. I've talked about Danny Manning and stuff enough. I think I should get a cut.
Fair enough. But no, we do love Missouri Valley. We love the folks in Horizon. We love what you're talking about. The Mountain West has got some fantastic teams in it this year that we've ridden all the way to the bank many times.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the slugfest because I believe Wyoming, Colorado State round 2 is coming up this week.
Well, Nevada and UNLV is tomorrow, which is huge. I mean, that's big time. That's the rivalry, the state rival. I live in Las Vegas, and I did statistics for UNLV basketball since like Lon Kruger on and off throughout since 2006, pretty much. So I did stats when Kevin Kruger played for UNLV, and now he's the coach. And I think it's just such a great. I mean, I was there through Menzies. Menzies was a good coach, but he wasn't that guy. He just wasn't that guy. And then when TJ Otzelberger came from South Dakota State, I had been cashing on the Jackrabbits for a while. That was one of those teams that was like pedal to the metal, and they don't let off the gas, and they're going to smear you. So I loved Otzelberger. I loved he brought David Jensen with him to redshirt, and he had kind of that like military mentality where those boys, you're sitting at the scorer's table, so you hear what coach is telling his guys the whole time, and you will stand it. We lost the game, stand up straight, and you shake their hands, and you look in their eye when you shake as they go through the lineup. So he brought a lot of respect to that team. But Kevin Kruger understands the culture of UNLV basketball. Kevin Kruger wants UNLV to win. And with Lon being retired, it's kind of like the year that Rick Pitino sat out before he went to Iona, and Richard Pitino was at Minnesota. And Richard just had like this killer year. Yeah, because he's got his dad on the phone,
Right.
Kevin, I feel like, is in that same spot where like, Dad, what do I do kind of a thing. But he's got support. He's got the support, and I love what's happening with this UNLV team this season. And then on the flip side, Nevada, I always say that fading Steve Alford is a full-time job. Okay? You can't let off at that, because if you faded Steve Alford every game this year, you're making money, okay?
Now, let me ask you something real quick, Ellie. You talked about, when Otzelberger left South Dakota State, I'm sorry. So you were definitely cashing in during the Mike Dahl era then?
Yes.
Because, he was a great player. I'm surprised he didn't catch on somewhere in the NBA with his shooting ability.
Sometimes that's what happens. I remember back in the Duke days, I'm a big Duke fan. I know, hold your applause. There was a kid named, Billy McCafferty, I believe his name was. He was a killer player for Duke, but he was on the bench because he was behind so many other great players. Right. And then he went out, I want to say he went to Seton Hall. But there's so many of those really good players that you hear about in college, and then you just kind of never see them again. And that was just one of those guys for whatever reason. They don't translate well.
Now, speaking of Duke, my wife and I are both from the hometown of probably one of the most hated people in the history of the ACC, if not college basketball in general. And you're speaking of Duke, and I'm of course speaking of Christian Laettner. We had our good friend L.A. Bachelor on the other day, and he still thinks that, Laettner should be strung up and beaten with a stick after he knocked Connecticut out in the tournament, then knocked Kentucky out. What's your take on Laettner, obviously, since you're a Duke fan?
Okay, so let's get real. First of all, Bobby is my favorite. Bobby Hurley, he's the jersey. I still wear my Bobby Hurley jersey to this day, my number 11, right? He's my guy. But Laettner you guys at home have every reason to hate Leitner. Okay,
I don't actually.
People.
I hate him, but he's from my hometown.
I love Christian Leitner, but if we're talking about fairness, and calls going your way, Leitner was stomping on people. He was kicking people. He was not a nice guy, and he didn't play fair. He was a dirty player, so I understand. Grayson Allen was the same kind of player, and he got.
That was going to be my next lead-in. Who's a dirtier player, Christian Leitner or Grayson Allen?
But let me bring up a point here real quick. Go ahead.
Okay. Well,
no,
Christian Leitner in his time with the Fab Five going and all that, and speaking of dirtiness in the Fab Five, Juwan Howard,
I was going to throw that out momentarily. Do you think Juwan Howard should be fired?
Technically, yes, but I kind of feel like maybe a 3-game suspension. You can't put your hands on people. You can't smack people in the face. That was, you want to wag your finger, that was one thing. Maybe a shove is one thing, but you straight mauled a dude's face, and he was littler than you, and you did it on TV in front of your team. So as far as being a leader, you got to keep your cool. That was not okay. That was not okay.
Just let me get back to Christian Leitner for one quick second.
Yeah, sorry.
No, not at all. If Christian Leitner played in the Big East, he'd be normal. And because it's the brand of basketball that you're playing in. In the ACC, there's a lot of ticky-tacky fouls. Okay, Johnny Thompson once told me, and I totally believe him, that the old joke in the Big East was no blood, no foul. If you didn't see somebody having blood coming from their arm, that wasn't good enough for a foul. He just touched him. And every time John was taking picked up an ACC game, in tournament, the first thing out of his mouth is, we're going to be fouled out before halftime. Because fouling in the ACC, they don't, if you breathe on somebody, they foul you in the ACC.
Well, the Big East in the Carnesecca and Thompson and Boeheim and everybody era was one step removed from professional wrestling, where if you didn't hit a guy with a chair, they weren't going to blow a whistle.
It was street ball. That's every team, was from a big city. That's all street ball. So Christian Leitner going to the ACC, I got no problem with what Christian Leitner did in the ACC.
He made it fun, and he did. There was blood, and there was fouls. I'll never forget Eric Montross on that free throw line. That's another guy who never did anything in the NBA.
Yeah.
I'll never forget Eric Montross bleeding out. What was it? It was his eye, wasn't it?
Yeah. It looked like a character out of Rocky. It's like, just cut me. Cut me out.
He was trying to look like Ric Flair, circa 1987.
The difference between Leitner and Allen, though, is that during that time, it was more okay than no blood, no foul. Grayson Allen came in a different era where, political correctness started to come in, and it was less acceptable. And Duke already has this stigma of, we get all the calls go our way, and we can do whatever we want on the court. I say we like I dress out and play. Not since the 90s, but
I thought you were the sixth man on the team.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Oh, I don't even bet on Duke games because I lose my mind. And Coach K leaving, the Coach K farewell tour is the saddest thing for me ever.
Now, let me ask you this, Allie, because we talked about this last week. Should John Shire be the next coach, or should it be Tommy Amaker?
I love Tommy. I went to the Final Four in Houston in 2011, and I sat behind Tommy Amaker on the plane. And I was dying, or 2 rows behind him dying. I don't know. I think whatever Coach K says is right. And I like the idea. Amaker was a longer time ago. I like Shire being fresher and newer, and he can kind of take it longer, I guess, legacy longer. Amaker's more limited in the years he has left. So, and I think too, Coach K's really been drilling stuff into Shire. I think a big reason why K took most of last season off, for better or worse, during the COVID year, was that he was assembling his final team. This is a guy who went to Army. He's a military guy. He's going to build his team to go out and fight the war, during his final season. I think he's also preparing his general to take over the Army after he's gone. So I trust in Coach K. I trust.
Can I tell you a quick Coach K story, Allie?
Yeah, you can tell me
All right.
100 of them.
Coach, let me just tell you what kind of guy that he is off the court. Okay. Dave Sims is one of my best friends. Dave does a Sirius XM radio show with Kay for years. They've done the Coach K show. Dave is up for the job as the play-by-play announcer for the Seattle Mariners. It's between him and another guy. I won't mention the other guy. Anyway, long story short, he says to me, I said, Dave, who's the GM or who's going to make the decision? He goes, the marketing director. Guy went to Duke. I said, okay, the guy went to Duke. It's between you and someone else. Don't you know someone at Duke that might be able to help you out? And he goes, what? I said, call Krzyzewski and ask him. So he calls him and said, look, Coach, I hate to do this. I'm just asking a favor. If you get a chance, could you just write me a little note? Just send an email address. Here's the guy's email address. Krzyzewski picks up the phone, calls the guy, talks to him for 25 minutes. And 2 days later, Dave gets a job. Krzyzewski is that kind of person to everybody who ever played for him, everybody he's met and liked. I can tell you tons of Krzyzewski stories about what kind of human being he is off the court. Okay. And that to me makes him even better as a human into what he can do as an amazing basketball coach. So,
except for his relationship with one Robert Montgomery Knight, which is
that kills me. That hurts my heart that they don't get along. It really does hurt my heart. Yeah.
I don't have the same kind of stories for Bobby that I do for Mike.
Well, you probably do. They're just expletive laced.
Right.
No, when I did the Big Ten, he was the only coach that did not have to do the pregame interview. That was a league directive. He didn't have to do it. If he wanted to send an assistant coach out there, if he wanted to send a water guy out there, he could. Never did it. He never did it.
Interviews with the water guy.
Probably get better. Well, let's get back to what we're here for, boys and girls. We got some basketball games to talk to and throw Allie into the fire here with us on.
I'm curious what Allie thinks about Loyola Chicago, Illinois State, because now that Dan Muller got fired, then he was going to coach out the year. Then he stepped down, and so now it's Brian Jones. I think Illinois State's pretty much nailed it in now at this point. What do you make of that, Allie?
I don't hate Illinois State at all. I think, okay, they returned all their players, so I like that about them. They lost to Loyola Chicago next, or they look first. Now they're going to play today. That's what I'm trying to say right now. I think 9.5 points is too many points for them to play at home. I think they're a feisty, fiery little squad. The coaching issues are a problem, but they're on my teaser. I took Illinois State plus 9.5 plus 4.5, so 14 points. Last time they played, they lost by 14.5 at Loyola Chicago. Now Chicago's on a road, coming off a loss to Drake. I think they'll be fiery. I think Chicago wins the game, but 9.5 I think is too many, and 14 I think is definitely too many. So
that's better when it was 8.5.
Yeah, no, I know that line movement does freak me out a little, but I feel like also that's money coming in on Loyola Chicago, coming off a loss to Drake, and wanting to do their thing. And Illinois State's not the greatest team in the league or in the conference. I get that about them. Loyola's got to win this game. They're, like we said, the top 4 are intense right now.
Yeah, my biggest concern with Illinois State is, they don't play defense. I think they're allergic to it. and Cy Chapman hurt them too. Because Chapman
could come out with something, like if Sudafed came out with like a defense allergy medication, that would be incredibly profitable. I'm just saying, Benadryl, think about it.
After COVID, they'll be working on it. Yeah.
Right.
So it's like COVID and then defense for basketball. Yeah, right there.
Right, exactly.
So, what Drake has Indiana State. I liked Indiana State a lot better before Tyreek Key got hurt in November. Yeah. That seemed to really derail the Sycamores, I think. Drake, like you said, they're right there. They've got to still play a little more consistent basketball because I know they've had serious road issues winning a lot of games by 1 point. Then they lost to Missouri State at home. They lost to Northern Iowa at home earlier this month. They lost to Bradley on the road. That one disappointed me.
Bradley's tough, though. Bradley will get you. They're a tough little squad when they want it. I think one of the most interesting things about Drake is just the way that the public perception has affected Drake's lines. If we remember last year, Drake was just this hovering machine. And this year, I think they're like 8 and 16 against the spread or something like that. I have it written down somewhere.
Yeah, it's some ugly number.
Against the spread. And that just goes to show you that the odds makers have set those lines higher. And Drake returned all their players. I mean, it's all the same guys on the team, but it just shows you those lines are set a little bit higher and to watch out for laying a bunch of points with Drake. That's not,
I see
I'm not a
line.
point layer.
I see their line has gone up too because I see they're originally there by 8.5 and now it's 10.5.
Oh, see, I had them at 11 going down to 10.5, but I looked this morning. But I played them under 141.5 on my teaser, though. So that's making them under a 45.5, 146.
So is that because you don't have faith in Indiana State?
Well, it's just like after running my numbers, that Indiana State, no, not a ton of faith in them. And I love the Sycamores. Don't get me wrong. Last year I cashed a lot on the Sycamores. It's just not the squad. And like you said, their main guy went out. So Keys being out was huge. He was an incoming freshman, wasn't he? He was supposed to be the big deal. But Drake, I've got Indiana State's numbers coming in like a 125-ish, and I've got Drake's coming in at a 135-ish. And I get the last time they played, it was a 152, so it went over the 144 that was posted. But now it's down. It's posted at a 141.5. And Drake's coming off that Loyola Chicago win, which actually was the same team that they beat right before they played Indiana State last time. I'm just taking it under, but I'm teasing it under because it's a little volatile.
And so let's see. Our other game in the conference is, let's see.
Evansville.
Yes, right. The Evansville train wreck.
Yes. I teased that over the 125.
So is that because we don't have faith in Evansville playing defense either? Because I know their offense is horrible.
So Evansville in their last 5 games, I have them like at a 126, but in their last 5 road games, I have them at a 130. So that bumps them up. And then same with Valpo in their last 5, I've got a 135, but their last 5 home, I have like a 137. So 131, 137 are both higher than a 125. So I take it over. That's right. My numbers work.
And they had 128 on Saturday in the Valpo 72-56 win at Evansville.
Yep.
I don't get the Purple Aces. They had a lot of talent last year. They started off well. Then Walter McCarty got suspended. Then Walter McCarty got fired. Then half their team seemingly transferred. Now it's a team that's a shell of what it was. And I feel bad for, their coaching staff because Todd Licklider walked into a no-win situation, and it hasn't gotten any better. And you have to wonder how long are they going to give him of a leash before they decide that they need to move somebody else.
Welcome to the world of mid-major college basketball.
Yeah.
You're always on your way up or you're always on your way down. There aren't that many guys who stay there and enjoy coaching mid-major basketball, which is a shame.
Porter Moser, but he left this year.
Right. So
which probably didn't pan out.
Yeah. We got some games on the agenda here, Chris, that you typed up. Let's get Allie's.
And I typed up some horrible games because there weren't a ton of good ones that were mid-majors, so they're all like horrible numbers when you look at the point spreads. Just because.
Don't oversell it, Chris. Thanks, really appreciate it.
I'm being perfectly honest. I mean, Colgate is going to be favored by like 6,003 points, but I still like them because they're playing American.
Well, just down the street from me in D.C. Well, here we go. Up we go.
Colgate's favored by 372 points, but they've won 55,000 in a row. Not really, but they started the year 4-10. We've been on them the last couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about them last week against Army, and we talked about them against Lafayette, and we talked about them with Lehigh. That Langels team has won 9 in a row. They've won 13 out of 14. American has not played good basketball, and that's being generous. Like we said, Pete said that he doesn't think Fort Myer has internet yet. I mean, American did beat Army at home the other day, but this one's on the road. Colgate beat American by 18 on the road already. And it's hard to slow down Colgate's offense because they shoot so well from outside, and it makes life miserable, especially when American doesn't score any points. And they're 333rd in scoring. They only average 62.4 points in the conference play, which is last. And Colgate's first at 76.6. They hung 86 in the first meeting. I just don't like American's chances here. And because we know, and you said it before, Jim, when you go to Colgate, it's not a friendly environment by any stretch of the imagination. Cotterell Court's a small building. But those 2,000 people they fit in there sounds like a much bigger crowd when you're in that environment. I just like the way Colgate's played basketball lately. I know the number is scary, but like I said, they won by 18 already.
Yeah.
Look, you don't go to American University to play basketball.
Oh, well, that's how Gary Williams there.
Well, that's why Gary Williams isn't coaching there anymore. I don't know. Colgate's made us too much money to not want them.
Yeah, I know it's an ugly number, but like I said, they covered in the first meeting, and they've beaten up. I think they've beaten American 8 straight times from what I looked at earlier. I just don't have any faith in American.
No, good reason to. Onward, sir.
Yeah, the day I lay 16.5 points is going to be a crazy day. So I'm going to tell you that about me. Like, the most points I'll ever lay is like 6 or 7. And like, I'm the plus money honey. You know,
Right.
I'm greedy. I want to take the points. Okay. So I'm always looking for an opportunity to take points. I don't ever want to lay them. So that's a little much for me. Okay. I'm curious to see what you say about this because I've already bet this game. So.
Coppin State, I just haven't. I've watched them play a few times. They played State. I watched them play State Bonaventure early in the season. I watched them play. Because obviously coming from up in the Western New York area, I'm familiar a lot more with St. Bonaventure and Canisius and all those schools. Sadly, Coppin State lost to Canisius. They had St. Bonaventure. You know, they've lost 4 in a row coming in. I know they played some close games. They lost to North Carolina Central by 1. They lost to South Carolina State by 8. But they're coming off a 30-point loss at home to Norfolk State. Spoiler alert, I like Norfolk State in a lot of games. They play well in the MEAC. Howard just played some good basketball. I think we were talking about them last week, Jim, where we talked about they played a lot of tough games. You know, they lost to Notre Dame by 3. They lost to Harvard by single digits. They lost to Georgetown. They lost to Villanova. So they played some good teams. They come in with 6 straight wins, 8 of their last 10. And I think they're eager to avenge that 2-point loss to Coppin State back in January. You look at Howard's numbers, they like to run. Kenny Blakely's squad. Now, Coppin State likes to run, but they don't put the ball in the basket.
They just like to run.
Yeah, they like to run, and they're bad defensively. I know that.
Do they have a track team? Maybe we could bet on.
Might as well.
Yeah, they got a great 4x100 team, Allie.
You look at the numbers. I mean, Coppin State is 11th in adjusted tempo at 72.7 possessions a game, and that makes them even faster than Howard. Howard is 22nd at 71.6. If Howard learns to not turn the ball over, they could be a lot more dangerous than what they are. But you know, facing a Coppin State team that they're not great offensively, they have their issues defensively. You can't let teams run in a track meet situation like that. And playing at Howard, I'm going to give the edge to Kenny Blakely. I feel bad for Juan Dixon because he's another guy that walked into a situation where things aren't all that great. And there's another Maryland reference.
Maryland guy, yeah. It was Steve Blake. I remember them.
But, yeah, I like Howard here. I mean, I've seen them play. They're battle-tested. They played some good teams. And, I mean, I used to be all about Notre Dame being a terrible basketball team because of the issues they have with a short rotation. And Howard hung with them. Now Notre Dame is all of a sudden playing good basketball, and they're up in the ACC race. I like Howard here. I'm not sure how you looked at it, Allie. I know that, I'm guessing you took Coppin State with the points.
I teased Coppin State with the points.
Okay, there you go.
So I've got them plus 12. I've liked Howard a whole lot this season is my deal. But I think when you're on such kind of like a losing streak like Coppin has been, and this is a team that you've beat before, that there's a little bit more confidence in you that, okay, maybe we can like get be in a get right spot right now. I don't think I would take them without the tease with it just 7.5, because Howard's definitely going to want to ruffle some feathers. But I like them plus 12. So I did teases today. I was kind of in a teasy. My numbers just were on what they were supposed to be, So when that happens, then I tease it in the way that I lead is how I roll.
Yeah, the disturbing part of the first meeting was Howard was up 39-13 with under 9 minutes to go in the first half. They were up, right? So they were up 26. They lost at the buzzer. I don't know if Coppin State can pull that out again. At least I'm hoping not, because.
Well, Howard played
in the play that game. We're going to find out.
Howard played in the HBC game over the weekend at the All-Star game.
Right.
And won by 2 points.
Yeah, that was an entertaining game. I mean, Morgan State gave them all they wanted, and probably then some.
Well, you get two. I mean, basically, this is a Baltimore-Washington game. Because you got Coppin State and you got Howard. So, these kids have seen each other play, probably played basketball against each other in high school. So, there's a lot of that. And that's, it's funny, with Morgan, with Coppin, and with Howard, a lot of those kids come from the same, neighborhoods and have seen each other playing since they were in elementary school.
Now, Allie, were there any other games that jumped out at you that screamed, you should bet me today?
So I have like I said, I have a 4-team teaser and I have a 3-team teaser is where I'm at right now. I don't parlay. I'm not a parlay person because I'm really stat driven and number driven. And my numbers, I've been a little slumpy lately though. So let me just put that out to the world right now. I'm kind of been a bit slumpy lately.
Well, everybody hit the skids here and there.
Yeah. I'm not crying over it or anything, but it's just a full disclosure, basically.
Right.
Okay. But so because my numbers tend to be fairly correct, I like to maybe tease them just to have some action and be able to follow the games without having to individually bet everything. And it's just a lower bankroll invested in my day. But I did take Middle Tennessee. I rocked with them today. I liked them straight up, but I also threw them in my teaser. So now they're a -1 instead of a -5.5. I know UTEP has played 3 road games in a row, so I was looking for Mid-Tennessee there. Sean Higgs, one of our Picks and Parlays handicappers from Winning Free Picks, was into Holy Cross. So I put them in my teaser plus 10.5. I've cashed on Holy Cross quite a few times this year, usually on their totals is what I hit. But
Holy Cross burned me, I think. Was it last week?
Last week, yeah.
Yeah, they burned me. But they beat Navy on the road.
Oh, I was going to say, I hit them last week, so there it is. Okay.
So that was disappointing. And then, I also had them against American last week, and they lost that one. They lost to American last Monday.
Oh, that's right, they did.
I thought they were going to win because it was a revenge game there, and it didn't pan out. I thought they'd win at home, too. But Middle Tennessee, I like them too. I mean, you look, the Blue Raiders are 12-0 at home, and like you said, UTEP's been on the road lately. Mm-hmm. They did beat Louisiana Tech. Eric Kunkel's done a great job down there. Nobody ever talks about him, probably because he's in Conference USA. But yeah, I think UTEP's going to have their issues going to Middle Tennessee. It's nice to see the Blue Raiders become relevant again because they've struggled the last couple of years. I remember the year, 2015, 2016, when they went to the tournament and knocked out Michigan State. So it's good to see the Blue Raiders play basketball at a competent level. Whether they make a run there in Conference USA, it's a crowded field in that conference. But hey, they beat Florida Atlantic over the weekend. Good for them. 5 in a row for the Blue Raiders there. Nicholas McDevitt doing a good job. Were there any other? I know there were some weird games. I saw the line on
Delaware State. That was my other one that I liked. Delaware State. I like the line movement on that one. So they're in my tees. I've got them plus 13.5 is what I've got.
That line actually moved down, didn't it? Because I thought South Carolina State was favored by double digits last night.
It was 12.5 and it moved down to a 9.5. So I like that line movement towards Delaware State, but I'm gonna tease them right back up to where they started from. Right back up to where they started.
There you go. Hey Chris, I'm gonna pull an audible here. Why don't we flip over to 2 for the money and we'll go through, give Allie a chance to play on our. So I know she doesn't do parlays, which is cool. That's fine. but we always appreciate Allie's comments. So
yeah, because I like to get an insight from stuff that I don't necessarily see because it's tough to try to look through everything at 3 in the morning.
Yeah,
there you go.
What's 2 for the money? Do I need a 2-team parlay for this?
We just put them together. I actually went the other way with Indiana State, so I had watched the Sycamores. I watched the Sycamores crumble too much. That's where Tyreek Key is such a loss for them. Yeah. And like we talked about Howard, Colgate. I know that you're not going to chase points, and I get it. I just want America doesn't seem to score any points, and I can't figure out what the problem is for them. Mike Brennan is a good coach, but they don't have any players. And that's why I'm hoping Colgate, sticks to what they're doing, what they do best, and that's beat people from the perimeter. I've looked at some of the things, and they just bury people out there. When you're shooting almost 40% from 3, of course, I said this about Cornell the other day, and Cornell friggin' bombed against Dartmouth. That was a great game Friday. Thanks for not bringing it up, Jim.
Hey, I'm here for you, Chris.
Hey, for what it's worth, Steve and Reichel used Bet the Farm for Cornell too, and it didn't pan out. So at least we were all on the same page. But yeah, I just like the way Colgate shoots and plays offense, and I think it's too much for American to handle it. I looked at the matchup from the first meeting between those teams, and Colgate shot 74% from 2-point range, so they didn't have to shoot a ton of threes. But I mean, when you shoot 74.3% from 2, you're in pretty good shape against anybody. I'm hoping that Colgate can stick with that again tonight and beat up American.
Yeah. Allie, we're also, like you, very stat-driven. And for Chris and I, the biggest and most important stat, one of them, I should say, not the, is free throws. And Colgate is really good at hitting free throws.
That's
major. Go ahead. Oh, no, go ahead, Allie. I was going to say, we talk about that a lot in the Mountain West.
Yeah, well, one of the biggest things it's not a stat necessarily, but one of the biggest things I look at is who they're playing next, especially in this portion of the season. There's a lot of times people are getting burned on my show on Morningwood, saying, oh, I took them. It's like, yeah, you took them playing this cruddy school minus 16 points, but did you realize they're going to play number 2 in the conference next? So they're not worried about wiping this guy out by the 16 point. And I'm not really talking about Colgate right here, because I agree, Colgate's just the better team on this one. I just don't lay the points. But if I had to play this gun to my head, I'd lay it with Colgate. And Colgate is number 1. And they've got Navy is number 2.
Yeah, they play them Saturday.
Yeah, but Colgate's in a good spot right now where they're going to play American now. They're going to play Holy Cross next, so 2 lower-tier teams, and then they've got Navy to take care of. So, I mean, again, I don't know how much they want to expend their energy beating up on the smaller guys, but they are must-win situations for sure for Colgate.
On Friday, we're going to have Pete Medhurst, the voice of the Navy Academy basketball for us. To give us a little insight on that. So a little heads up, everybody. Pete's coming back. He's also the voice of the Washington Nationals. Does a daily sports show in Washington between 3 and 6. So we're getting as many Pete plugs in for him as possible ahead of time. When we say 2 for the money parlays, we put these 4 out there, and you can pick whatever you want. I mean, you don't have to take what we give you. And that's why when we go from 2 for the money, we go 4 for the show. There's 4 options we're going to give you now. And they are, Christopher, you may move on. There you go.
Yeah, but 2 of them are hockey games. We didn't talk about those yet.
Okay.
But yeah, I had Middle Tennessee on there, just like Allie was talking about, with UTEP being coming in a 3rd straight road game. Middle Tennessee 12-0 at home. They played good basketball. And I like Norfolk State. Like we just said, they whipped up on... They cleaned up with a 30-point win on the road over the weekend against who we just talked about? Oh yeah, Coppin State, right? They're going to get a Morgan State team that lost Saturday, like we said, to Howard. Norfolk State, Robert Jones has done a good job up there. They've won 9 out of 10, 3 in a row coming into this one. They took care of business against Morgan State, winning by 20 at home. I'm surprised the line was only 5 points in this one. That's why I like Norfolk State here. I just don't get Morgan State because they play tough in some games, and then other games they roll over and die. You just look at, they've got 4 of their 8 wins are against teams that aren't Division I programs. Anybody can beat Penn State, Allegheny. I'm sure I could probably get 5 people that I went to high school with, and we could probably beat them.
Ooh, I went in. I've got a great shot.
There you go.
I went on that team.
There you go.
Got it. Yeah.
We have a question for Allie.
Uh-huh.
And this is from Max. Max is asking Allie about this. Oops.
Taking teasers at a
Actually, it covers over Allie's face, so let me get rid of that.
It's all good. Teasers it's not something, I don't tease a whole lot. It's just more when I'm slumpy. It's a way to kind of bet for, 3 to 4 games and be able to have a little extra value with the point spread in it. And it's kind of more of a way for me to check what I'm doing, than it is like make a ton of money on it. So I really don't parlay. I really don't tease. And typically if I am taking a teaser, I'll take all of my bets straight and then I'll throw them together on a little teaser lottery ticket thing too. I don't parlay. I don't see a ton of value in parlays. So that's just, it's just part of like my process to see if I'm on or if I'm off. Instead of having 4 bets out, I'll have 1 bet out, but I can gauge what my numbers are doing for me today. And that was another thing, talking about who they play next with the Howard game with Coppin. Howard's going to play NC next, and that's number 2 in their conference. So this could definitely be a look-ahead spot for them, where I like that Coppin squad in the tees, plus a couple more points too. So throwing that out there.
That's true. I mean, you have to hope that, being a 14-10 team, that Kenny Blakely realizes that his team can't afford to look ahead at anybody. Because when they do that, that's when they inevitably get burned. That's probably how they ended up losing to Coppin State the first time, because their next game was, like you said, they played North Carolina Central. They won that one in overtime.
Yeah.
But they probably looked ahead, like you said.
I don't think they lose to Coppin, so don't get me wrong there. I don't think they lose the game, but I will take some points with them.
Allie, let me ask you a question, if you don't mind. We get a lot of people here who are first-time wagers. They're getting in, as each state opens up, we have a bunch of different new people. Explain the term teaser and what it means.
Okay, so I do a lot of this on my Morning Wood show. The Morning Wood show, when I first got started and decided, Allie, all you're going to do is handicap sports and find someone who wants to stick a camera in front of your face and talk about them. This is going to be like my new life goal. So that was about 3 years ago, and here I am. But I had started a show called Coulda, Woulda, Shoulda, teaching novice bettors not who to bet, but how to bet on sports. So now I have a show called Morning Wood, and that's what I do. It's a lot of people coming in and learning things. So how a teaser works is, it depends on your book. Some books will give you 6 points, some 4.5. It depends. But basically, I want to pull my whiteboard over here so bad, because this is how I explain everything on my show. It was with my big
by the way, if you haven't seen Allie's show, you got to watch it. It's fantastic. She is a bundle of energy, great knowledge, and the whiteboard is fantastic. It's like watching a teacher explain to you something and having fun.
It's like John Madden with the telestrator.
Yeah, and then
we need to get her a telestrator.
The whiteboard is used to do contests too. So there's always, every week I do 2 free contests where they can win $100. And my show's called Morning Wood. So it's the last Woody standing, where everyone comes in and gives me their best bet. And it's day after day. You win $100 in a t-shirt at the end. And then I have the buzzer beater on Thursday. So it's only college basketball, but the same thing for $50. But how a teaser works is, say I'm getting 10 points. We're going to make it simple with basic numbers.
Okay.
If I've got a plus 10, and I have a 5-point teaser, now I have a plus 15, right? If I have a minus 10 on a 5-point teaser, now I've got a minus 5. So it depends on how you want to navigate. I like this team to win, but I don't know if they do it by this many points and squish it down, or vice versa. This is close, but this is too many. And then it works in totals too. So if your 150 is your number and you think it goes over a 150, you're going to tease it to a 145. So now you have to go over 5 points less, and then the under would work the same way. 150 would be a 155. If you teased it under, now you have to get under 5 points more. And typically with a teaser, you've got to have more than one on a ticket, right? You can't just tease one game. You've got to tease 2 or 3 or 4. I typically stick with 2 or with 3 or 4. 2 doesn't really have the value. 2 is going to be like a straight bet. You're going to get a minus 110. So it'll be whatever a straight bet would pay. So I like to bump it to a 3 or a 4 so you can get some plus money in there and get your game going on. So again, it's not something I do all the time. And typically if I'm teasing, I'm going to straight bet everything in my teaser. But right now I'm just at a point. So what are you going to do? Nobody is perfect all the time.
What about Detroit Lenny? What is he betting on?
So Detroit Lenny, he's a big hockey guy. So if you guys ever want to talk some hockey, let me know. I'll get you hooked up with Lenny. Lenny loves, what does he do? 2-team teasers, and then he loves 3-team round robins, and he does them by 2s and 3s. So if you guys don't know what a round robin is, it's a little bit more advanced, but basically you would take 3 teams, and say you play it by 2s, so team A, B, and C. It turns this into different parlays, right? So say you put $5 on a round robin, team A and B are now a 2-team parlay for $5. B and C are a 2-team parlay for $5, and then A and C are a 2-team parlay for $5. So now you've got, more bets out. But if you do it with money line dogs, you can make some skrill. Like you can pop up. So if I'm going through my stats and there's a couple money line dogs that I really like, I'll throw 2 or 3 of them. I'll throw 3 of them into a round robin and see what it comes up with. Just one of those has to hit. You can have a great freaking day. So yeah, the only time I'll really parlay, it's like Ryan Page said, is like a 2-team money liner. I don't mind a little 2-team money liner, even 2 teams with points. But if I really like something, 2-team money line dogs, I'll throw them into a parlay just to see what happens.
So Lenny's betting on the Red Wings a lot.
He does-ish, yes. Lenny's really into a lot of the hockey guys on the Picks and Parlays site right now. Nick Earl is another really big hockey guy. They're into race to 3s, like the race to 2, race to 3. They really like to play those. They're really into the hockey team totals. Team total over, first period, like Flames' first period over has been money.
Flames have been torching everyone.
Yeah. They're a little bit more into the props of things as far as hockey goes. But they have a new show on, it used to be on Tuesdays, but it's called Net Picks and Chill. And it's Friday nights, and they kind of go over the hockey card Friday night for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. But that's the Lenny and Nick Earl show that's really good.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Let's do this. We have one more slide, right, Chris?
Yep. All right. The giant cluster slide.
This is our menu slide. There's a bunch of stuff on here. Pick what you will and toss away what you don't.
Jim calls it a Chinese menu.
Yeah, there you go. You ready?
I love shopping. Okay, let's go.
Okay, here we go. Shopping at the Gap. Here it is.
Yeah, I'm actually leaning with Arizona State getting a whole crap load of points. That's right up your alley, Allie, because they're playing UCLA. They already beat UCLA in Tempe. I know Mick Cronin's got a ton of talent there, but all of a sudden Arizona State is trying to look like a competent basketball team. I don't know where that was the first 3 months of the season, but
okay. Well, it was hard because they lost Remy Martin, and he was a big loss to that squad. So I'll at least give them that a little bit for the beginnings.
Well, true. I mean, they had Verge transferred. Now he's in Nebraska. But I mean, they did get Marion Jackson, who was great at Toledo, and Hurley really hasn't used him, which is surprising. Because, I mean, he was averaging 20 points or right around there at Toledo the last few years up in the MAC. What, now all of a sudden he forgot to play basketball because he went to Tempe? I don't get it. But like you said, Arizona State, they won 3 in a row. They beat Washington State and Pullman. Then they swept the Oregon schools. Speaking of Oregon, I don't know what happened to them.
Oh, my God. That was such a good game. I couldn't even bet on it. It was such a good game. I had Arizona -1.5 in play, and I was like, don't take it. Just watch. Just let this happen. Don't get involved. Just enjoy the basketball right now.
Yeah, that was a good game Saturday, but on Thursday they got just completely smoked by.
Because they were looking ahead to Arizona, is what I would think. And I think UCLA in this game against Arizona State could definitely be looking ahead to an Oregon team that almost knocked off a number 3 Arizona team. So I would agree that 15 points is too many points in what could be a look-ahead spot for UCLA having to travel to Oregon next week.
There you go. Pacific, what do you think of Pacific? Do you think that they're terrible? Like we do?
I mean, it's hard to say. they're good.
Well, let's put it this way. It's not if they're terrible. It's are they terrible enough to be beaten by 13 points?
Well, I keep looking at Pacific, and every time I look at them, they're getting killed by somebody. Let me just look at Pacific. They got, of course, they got trounced by Gonzaga. They had that game against USC where USC, I think, forgot to play basketball because that was the first time Pacific covered on the road all season. Where we talked about that a couple weeks ago, Jim.
Yeah.
We were wondering why the hell is USC playing Pacific in the middle of February?
Exactly.
And then they didn't show
up. It was
up.
a COVID game. Yeah.
Sure, Pacific beat Loyola Marymount the other day by 1.
Yeah. I'm not going with that. I love the Dons, though. I've been a big San Francisco fan for maybe 3-4 years now. I think it was 3 years ago. They really kind of set fire. And just coming off that loss to St. Mary, they're 3 in the conference. They've got to get their wins in. They want signature wins.
But are you worried about the look ahead there because they're going to face Gonzaga Thursday? Is that something that we should look out for?
That's a good call.
I'm just worried because, but on the flip side,
I'm never going to take Pacific. Like, there's just Allie Burns, you're never going to Pacific on my card. Maybe teasing it, but no. I'm okay.
That's going to be on your headstone at some point. Allie Burns, she never took Pacific.
Yeah.
You got Southern Utah. They're facing Northern Arizona. The Lumberjacks. Talk about another team that's inconsistent.
I loved them last year.
Yeah, they were good last year. I don't know what happened to them this year. But at Southern Utah, I watched part of that game. And this is another one that killed me last week when they faced Northern Colorado in that wild game up there in Greeley, where they were down by 16, then they were up by 17 with 4.5 minutes to go, and still found a way to lose by 5. And then Northern Colorado went out and lost to Idaho State. But now Southern Utah, they're in Flagstaff for this one. I just don't trust the Lumberjacks.
What could be said though that Southern Utah is 7-16 against the spread, where at least Northern Arizona is 12-12. So they've got that going for them. Taking 6 points at home with a team that's better against the spread, I don't necessarily hate that.
But are they getting are they 12-12 against the spread because they're underdogs by 300 points every game?
Well, I'll take 300 points every day if you give
me.
Of
course. I mean,
I'm just kidding.
It's a little over.
No, I'm looking at some stuff.
I mean, I know Southern Utah, they've got Montana State coming up in the next 2 games after this.
Yeah, they're tied with Inco 2.5 games back. So they're in 3rd place in the Big Sky.
Yeah, I can't believe that Northern Colorado tanked that game against Idaho State. They get to play them again tonight. I didn't even bother putting that one up because I'm still bitter about them losing to Idaho State last week. In a game, you score 100 points, you score 32 points in 4 minutes, and then you turn around and you score 59 against a team that can't play basketball to save their lives. I don't think they know what a basketball is up in Pocatello. But it was just disheartening because then you turn around and watch, Idaho State, they lost to Sacramento State, and everybody knows Sacramento State, not a good basketball team.
Yeah, they could be doing better things with their time in Sacramento because it's not playing basketball. That's not what you guys should be doing.
Perhaps they're lobbying the California legislature.
And speaking of North Carolina Central, Allie, they face Maryland Eastern Shore tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, we've got them dealing with Howard coming up. Eastern Shore has been, well, let's be honest, they're up and down too. Kind of a lot of these teams are. I think that, I looked at it and saw NC Central won by a dozen at Princess Anne in the first meeting. Didn't know that's where that was. I thought it had a cooler name than that, but I guess not. But now, should we be concerned about NC Central worrying about looking ahead?
Hold on, I'm looking things up. Don't think I'm not looking things up.
Don't worry, that too.
I'm just trying to see what everyone's coming off of. I mean, there's always the chance of a look ahead spot. That's a real thing for me. But it doesn't apply to every single situation also. So let's, just tell the viewers that it's not every single time that someone, but it's always something that should be considered. I definitely consider it with Howard. However, Howard did lose to this team that they're playing. So there's that. But that's what part of the tease also. I'm just not, and I don't know much about Maryland, I guess, would be the best thing I could say. I don't know a lot about that team.
Well, that's understandable. Just looking at from Ken Pop, they're abysmal.
Yeah.
48% from two.
I mean, they've kept it close, though. I mean, they lost by 7 to South Carolina. They lost by 6 to Howard. They lost by 7 to Norfolk. I mean, it's not that, that kind of might explain why that line is only a 5.5 for such a crud team coming against such a good team.
The weird part is, though, it's on the road. So, are we saying that North Carolina Central can't play at home or something?
So maybe that's just the fishy line there. That should be a bigger line, and really Maryland is the play.
I mean, now, do you agree that the lines are a lot fuzzier in mid majors than you would say in the power conferences?
That's why I stay in the mid majors, is because with and this is something the betting public, the new bettors, don't understand, is that when you've got, say there's 100 people that are going to bet on one game, right? Typically, we're going to have 80 of these people bet on the Duke UNC game, and 20 of them are going to bet on whatever the smaller game, right? Loyola Chicago, Illinois State, because it's going to be televised, because they've heard of these teams before, all these things, right? But that means that those 80 people on this side, the line is so much sharper. The odds makers want it to be so spot on because they're protecting their interests, right? When you're in the mid majors, there's a lot more room to navigate. The lines are not as sharp. The public perception means a big deal, which is why, like we were saying, the Drake against the spread this season is not what it was. The St. Bonnie's isn't quite what they were last year. It's that public perception where, the betting public's like, ooh, I'm so smart because I know who Drake is, or I'm so smart because I know who, these little tiny teams are, where they're going to ram that up your butt this season. And now look at Drake with their 8 and 17 against the spread. So yeah, lines are much softer in the mid majors. But look out for those teams that stood out last year, because their lines are going to be a lot sharper, and they're going to be swayed with the public opinion.
Yeah, one of the games that real quick, Jim, one of the games that we had last week that we were talking about, it seemed like the line was way out of whack, was in the Colonial, where Delaware was favored by 6 at home against a James Madison team they beat by 16 on the road. And we told people to jump all over that, and turned out that, Delaware won by 21 points.
I love that Delaware team this year.
Yeah, to see a line that was that small, I was looking, I was like, is this a typo? Did somebody put it in wrong? Because you see lines like that, and they jump out, and they don't make sense. Now, if a line doesn't make sense to you, are you jumping on it right away, or do you look into it further?
I usually, when the lines don't make sense to me, it's in big schools, and I don't typically bet on those.
Right.
So, when Michigan State played Penn State last week, it was Michigan State -4 on the road to Penn State. Penn's on a 3-game losing streak. And why is Michigan only a -4? Oh, because they have Illinois next. That's why, or Wisconsin a -2.5 against so-and-so. I think that was Michigan State also. But these are like the lines that pop out in my head, where I'm like, why are you this? And that is all public perception. That is the public looking and saying, oh, they've lost 3 in a row, and it's Michigan State, and they're great, and Tom Izzo, and no, you lost your bet. You didn't even come close. You lost it outright, stuff like that. It depends. Sometimes I bet on it, sometimes I don't. Typically I don't, because they're big schools, and I just don't bet on big schools. But I tell all my people not to. I'm all over telling my people not to. Rutgers +12 yesterday. That was money all day. I had that in a I hit my 14 teaser yesterday, so I'm feeling good right now.
Well, there you go. Slumps busted.
Yeah, right. And I got Missouri. I hit +4.5, and I got Washington State +7. So it wasn't a bad day yesterday. Good Lord willing, and the creek don't rise. It'll keep on going.
It's funny. I know that you're a University of Houston grad.
Mm-hmm.
So what
we
about?
We won't talk about West Lama Jammas then.
Well,
I wanted to know where Clyde and Akeem were on the top 75 list, if they were on there.
Oh,
Clyde was on there.
Yeah, they both were. Olajuwon was 11.
11? Really?
Yep.
That's pretty good.
Get it, Akeem.
Yeah, Olajuwon was 11, and
I love his story of like how he made it to Houston, like flying in and then showing the guy, he was in New York, LaGuardia, I think, and showing him the plane tickets and being like, these are my options. Which one has the weather most like Africa? And the guy's like, Houston, Texas. He's like, that's where I'm going. Went to college there, stayed in the pros there. No need. I'm that same kind of person. Like, I'm not living anywhere that it's cold. So perfect. Houston lucked out there.
See, I come from the other mentality where I grew up where you get 7 feet of snow, and now I live in the South, and I miss the snow myself. My wife doesn't.
I'm not that kind of girl.
Clyde Drexler was 43rd, sandwiched between George the Iceman Gervin and Willis Reed.
Huh. That's good company.
Yeah.
Surprisingly, Russell Westbrook was 46.
Ew, he should not be on this list at all.
This is what Jim and I were talking about in the pre-show about how somebody's name, like Rodman is 62, like we said, and he's ahead of,
Rodman made rebounding an art form, people. He made it into an art form. Okay, no. He needs to be up there. He's a top 20 player for me, for sure.
Let's see, what were some of the other names that jumped out? Harden and Kawhi Leonard are 33 and 34. Ahead of Steve Nash and Bob Cousy at 38 and 39.
I love Steve Nash. He's one of my favorite. Where's Dirk? Is Dirk in there?
Yep, Dirk is number 21.
I still root for Santa Clara because of Steve Nash. Still, to this day.
I still remember when Steve Nash knocked out, wasn't it Arizona in the first round back in the early 90s?
Was that with the Bibby?
Yeah, I think that was Bibby and Miles Simon.
No, Camby wasn't there. Camby was a UMass guy.
Not yet, no.
Yeah, with Lou Reed or Lou Rowe.
Yeah, Lou Rowe. I remember him.
I loved him.
But just looking at should Carmelo Anthony be on this list?
I know longevity-wise, one of my favorite Carmelo things is, forget what year, I want to say it's 99, but I'm probably wrong, but he went to Syracuse, and they're like, so how are you going to enjoy your time at Syracuse? And he's like, my time, I'm going to be here 1 year, I'm going to win a national championship, and then I'll see you in the NBA. And then that's exactly what happened.
That was 0203.
0203, there we go. I knew I was off. Spaghetti was 99.
Well, he definitely was not going to get on the alumni mailing list.
Yeah.
That wasn't done.
That's fair.
But I mean, longevity is one thing.
How many rings? Melo, I don't think is one of the greatest of all time.
I mean, my mentality is you look at some of these guys. Bobby the Brain Heenan once said, "It'll take a good man to beat him, but it won't take him long." And that's when you look at some of these names on this list. It's like I don't understand why they're here, or why they're as high as they are. I mean, should Russell Westbrook be in front of guys? For example, he's right in front of Reggie Miller, Gary Payton, McHale, Paul Pierce, and Dominique Wilkins. I'm sure I know Wilkins. I know he didn't win a ring, but he made basketball entertaining for Atlanta fans in the 80s.
He shouldn't be in the same room with those 5 guys.
Nailed it. What about Sean Kemp? Is he on there?
Not even on the list.
Really? Is Karl Malone?
Yeah, he's number 16, and people were saying he shouldn't be on there either.
I don't mind him. He was delivering things to John. He was the mailman.
Right.
Yep.
What about the
I'm a Utah fan. I mean, I watched them from the
David is on the list.
It's got to be.
Yeah. Who are we talking about now?
David
Robinson.
No, actually,
Robinson.
I don't think I saw him on. Oh, yeah. No, he's number 20. I'm sorry. He's right between Dirk and Dr. J.
I could take that. Because I think part of the reason why Tim Duncan was so successful, he was great at Wake Forest. Like, I loved Tim Duncan since college. But, I talk about this with football also. Brady followed Bledsoe. When you have that really good guy in front of you to learn from and observe, it's much more beneficial for you to just come out of college and be the starting quarterback kind of a thing. I like them to have a role model on that team already, and you're not just put in that position if you have to be the boss. And Duncan with Rodman, I thought was a great combination and really ended up being beneficial to Tim Duncan throughout his career.
Well, yeah, David Robinson there as well.
Oh, yeah. No, that's what I'm saying. Like, the Duncan was behind Robinson, and he could kind of learn from him and grew up.
And the personalities were relatively the same.
Yeah, they were both boring as all hell. Like, no, I do not.
That's all. That's all Popovich wanted was boring. He loves boring. So there you go.
Boring with
Allie,
basketball games. You know, the
Allie, it's time for
fundamentals.
It's time for shameless plugs. Okay.
Woo!
So tell us where to follow you. Tell us where to watch your show because everybody's going to want to. We already saw people over there saying Allie should be a regular. She is a regular on her own show. She's kind enough to join us on our day off. So, I mean, you know, Busman's holiday. So we greatly appreciate her, you know, dropping by. But go ahead. Shameless plug time, Allie.
Yeah, so I work for a company called Picks and Parlays, and you can find them.
Friends
search
of ours.
on YouTube. Yeah, friends of you guys. So Picks and Parlays, search on YouTube or on Facebook. Like, subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, and then on that YouTube channel, we've got 25 different cappers from the Picks and Parlays site, and we're all intertwining and meshing together. So every morning at this exact time, actually, we're competition, guys. We're competition.
Yeah, good to see Detroit Lenny stop by.
Oh, hi, Lenny. So he
Lenny, we'll get you on too if you want.
So yeah, 1:30 p.m. Eastern every day we do the Morning Wood Show, and that's where you come on and get all your contest bets in. And I talk about college basketball, and all the commenters are really good. It's a community. We call Morning Wood a community. We have our own Facebook page, and it's really about, you know, some people are good at props, some are good at injury reports, some are good at this and that, and it's a place we all jump in the morning together and say, hey, do you know if he's out? Is he going to play? Is this happening? And we come up with our picks that way. I do free picks for Picks and Parlays, obviously, so you'll see me in a lot of those little free picks with our handicappers. And then I also produce a show called Total Chaos, where I take Lenny was a Total Chaos freaking dynamo. That's not the right word, but it's in there.
Or dynamo.
Yeah. There it is, Dynamo. Thank you. Yeah, he was crushing it during football season. He's a big hockey guy. Hi, Bill McDonald. Yeah, see OG Woody. He's an OG Morning Woody. So I take two of our professional handicappers. Sometimes I'll take a Morning Woody. I put them head to head. I give them 5 games, basketball, hockey, whatever, and they tell me if it goes over or under, and then they get to be the Total Chaos champion. And then Lenny does a show, Net Picks and Chill, on Fridays, like I was talking about the hockey show. He does Shooting Hoops with Tim Earl, the other twin, on Wednesday nights. We did a show called Almost Adulting, where we basically get drunk and watch football together. But we were in the Circa contest, so that was kind of a big deal. But now that football season's over, we're kind of chilling it down. But yeah, just tons and tons and tons of shows on the Picks and Parlays YouTube channel. So hit that like button, subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, and become part of the crew, man. We got a big old crew going on. So it's a lot of fun.
Which is great. I'm glad. We're glad to be partners and friends. So,
and like Lenny said, we family, we different, but we family.
We different, but we family. Yeah, that's true.
And Lenny, if you're still out there, we'd love to have you on and talk about hockey because there's not a ton of people that talk a ton of hockey.
Other than us.
Peter Reichel don't, so I can't talk to them about it.
But you guys are hockey guys?
I am.
I'm hockey and baseball.
Jim is the James Brown of the show.
Right.
Sorry.
I keep the trains on time.
Or cross, you know.
Yeah, I'm college basketball and baseball. That's really where I go. But Lenny, like, I hit him up all the time. Like, do we in-play this now? Feels like I should in-play something. And Lenny does TikTok. He's got his own. It's a Picks and Parlays TikTok, and Lenny does 2 or 3 team teasers, parlays, straight bets, all kinds of stuff, and he's crushing it. He's like a TikTok sensation. So definitely check him out. But yeah, you guys should hook up. You'll love to talk hockey with Lenny.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what, Allie. We greatly appreciate you dropping by. We really thank you. Chris, as always, ladies and gentlemen, have a great time. Boys and girls, bring your pens and papers tomorrow. Questions will be taken. We didn't take a lot today, but we will tomorrow because we had a special guest. Allie is with us. And
we give you a lot of information that's out there that you guys should pay attention to.
That's right. So have a wonderful day. You now know where to find Allie. Please do. And we'll see you all tomorrow right here when we come back for another edition of Just Parlays.
Yes. Thank you guys so much.